All aboard! Next stop, Chicago Junction.
Yes, it's Chicago Junction. The wonderful transportation that goes through the wonderful world of electric trains and real trains. And now, here's our host, Mr. John DeVita.
Oh, thank you very much, Rich. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Chicago Junction from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich on Thursday, October the 20th, the year 2016. Today, the panel will be talking about railroads and model railroads. And now, to start our broadcast today, here's our announcer, Mr. Brian.
Yes, I'm your announcer, Brian Valou. And our host is back after his brief sojourn last month, Mr. Jack Red Ryan.
Thank you. Sorry to have missed. I always enjoy getting together with you fellas, and we do our historian show, and we had the pleasure of two shows in 1 week this way with historians. It was on Monday, and because we had to move this back a week, didn't realize that we were running into both the debate and the Cubs tonight. So let's get this thing rolling. Got it?
Well, we'll provide the real entertainment.
I'll provide the pictures. I'll provide the pictures. I'll provide the war. Right? Wasn't that it?
That's it.
Yeah, something like that. So anyway, it's a beautiful, beautiful day in October, fall evening. It is the 19th of October, and I hear Brother Kevin Barry said that you had a birthday this past week. Was that true, Brian?
No. I had a birthday. I celebrate the United States Navy's birthday.
Yeah. Which was?
And 46.
Is it 246?
246 was October 13th.
There you go. And what does that mean? It was officially sanctioned or officially by the Continental Congress? Or
yeah,
what?
Congress did it October 13th, 1775.
That's amazing that we can go back that far. It seems like just yesterday we were just celebrating the bicentennial year. You hear my little kids have grown up now, the little ones who were around then. And anyway, remember
bicentennial year was 40 years ago.
I know. But you know what? Time moves right along when you're enjoying yourself.
So true.
Were you in Chicago then, Brian? Or?
No, I was in Hawaii.
Oh.
I was on the USS Preble.
I'm fine. How are you?
In fact, it's I have a nephew there now with his family, and his wife just passed word that she is now expecting again. They're going to have their second child, and she'll be like the next generation that they'll be born in Hawaii at the Army Tripler Medical Center, the Pink Palace on the hill.
As
that's where my daughter was born.
As opposed to the Pink Lady on the beach.
That is true.
So this young couple is just getting off, disembarking this luxury liner in Honolulu, and the man spots an obvious Hawaiian native, and he says to him, "Can you do me a favor and just settle this little disagreement my wife and I are having? Do you pronounce it Hawaii or Hawaii?" And the guy says, "Hawaii." And the man says, "Thank you." And the guy says, "You're welcome." So, okay.
Do you have to steal material from Arthur Godfrey?
Holly Loki, Duke Kahiyanamoka was one of his guests. Let's have a little roll call here. We're going kind of light tonight. Dave DeRushka is on assignment, as is, who else is on assignment?
Ron Smolin.
Yeah, Ron Smolin. Yeah, he's touring with the band or something. That was good for him.
And the other Ron.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Ron Stock. He couldn't make it tonight because he's home with a sore throat and he wasn't feeling well. So he sent me an email and said he won't be here tonight, but he really wants to be part of our panel.
Okay. We can handle that, right?
I mean, no, you have to come because, nothing makes you feel better than playing and talking about trains.
Meeting big guys, big kids.
Tis true. Tis true.
Yeah. What did you call it? The sickness, Kevin?
It is referred within the hobby as the sickness.
That's the
especially amongst the Lionel guys.
Yeah.
Because it's once in, never out.
You're hooked. Is that it?
Something like that.
Which way do we go, left or right today? This way? Okay. Mouse gets a roll call, sitting to my right.
Good evening. I'm Kevin Berry. I'm a retired Chicago police sergeant, and I am a board member for the Chicagoland Lionel Railroad Club, and I've been an avid Lionel collector and operator since Christmas of 1957, and I have my original set still, and my daughter and now my granddaughter have operated it, so I figure I've got about 6 months until my grandson gets old enough to figure out how to work the old swing arm transformer, and he'll run that 2037 engine around the track.
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Brian?
Brian Valou, retired Navy locomotive engineer. I have, though, rejoined the workforce for the last couple of weeks. And it's rough getting up there and fighting traffic. I wonder why I did it.
Oh, that's if we could avoid the stress of the traffic like that, imagine, much more pleasure.
That's true. But I am a member of the Chicago Area Garden Railway Society. I play with Lionel trains. Member of the Reading Company Technical and Historical Society. A member of several museums and such, like the Heston Steam Museum. And basically a gopher for him. And also the Chicago Botanic Garden. We're getting ready to close down the outdoor railroad and start setting up the Christmas layout.
Never-ending battle, right?
Oh, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Close one door and open another.
Yeah. Okay, and to my left is...
This is Doug Kanyuk. I'm an adjunct professor at Wilbur Wright College, officer in the Railroad and Short Lines Club of Chicago, longtime rail fan and an end scaler, and like trains.
And I'm Jack Ryan, and I like trains too, and that's about the extent of my my experience, other than my grandfather, uncle, and cousin all worked for the Chicago Junction Railroad, hence the title. It was very something that was very important to our family. It was bread and butter. It was also our summer picnic. We used to have a chartered train. We'd get to LaSalle on 63rd and go to Michigan City for the day, which was some place to go in those days. You had Washington Park is there. You had beautiful beach. It was just like incredibly beautiful. Picnic area, picnic grove, amusement park, zoo, and we had a tower. You could go way up on was huge dune or whatever it was in the forest, and so kids could spend the whole day there, and we did. Very tired on the way home. So, anyway, let's go. Anybody got anything? Or are we going to start? We don't have the guest we thought we had. We're going to mention. Well, maybe we'll get them next time.
I got a couple items as always.
Okay, this is you, Doug.
Yes.
Okay, Professor.
Good old Great Lakes Basin Transportation, the Great Lakes Beltline, whatever you want to call it this week. The STB has asked for some alternate routings through Illinois and Wisconsin. Apparently the people in those towns put up a fuss and said, we don't need another railroad through here. And the Great Lakes Basin is now in the process of coming up with some alternate routing. Nothing's going to change in Indiana. They said the new route will be 21 miles shorter, which is kind of hard to figure out, but...
How many?
21 miles shorter. So that's the latest thing out of them, they got until the end of this month to come up with the alternate routings for the Surface Transportation Board. Downstate in Paxton, Illinois, a guy known as Chuck Warner was known as Mr. Illinois Central Historical Society. Told the Illinois Central Historical Society he's retiring at the end of the year. Go find somebody new to run their little museum down there. So he's had enough of everything, and I guess he wants to get out and enjoy life.
That'll be easier said than done, right? For a job like that one.
Yeah, that's going to be a hard one to fill because that was their bookstore. Their historical documents are stored there.
Where is this in
Paxton, Illinois?
Paxton is
downstate someplace.
Thank you.
It's close enough for me.
It's off of I-57. That's all I remember about it. I see it every time I take that road.
Somewhere down past I-88. Who knows?
Yeah.
Here's an interesting thing that came up. For the longest time, Germany, when it was West Germany, now it's Germany, was working on a maglev train. And they actually had a 3-mile track up and running. The whole thing's up for sale. They are getting, the company that's doing it, Transrapid, has decided to get out of the business, and they're selling the whole thing. They're willing to dismantle it and ship it any place to anybody who wants it. It's a maglev, magnetic levitation.
Oh.
Monorail.
I
Right.
sort of remember hearing about the term before.
If you remember the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still, Michael Rennie tells the young man, I'll tell you about a train that doesn't need rails to run. That's what he was talking about.
That's right. I mean, there are maglevs in operation. There's one in Shanghai, runs between downtown and the airport.
A monorail.
And, yeah.
Similar, but different.
It's funny about not to interject here, but I am. It's funny when being in grade school in the 50s. By the time you kids are all grown, we were told, you'll be traveling around in monorails, speaking Esperanto, and using the decimal system, instead of metric system, right? We're told that
they got the metric part right.
Yeah, Metrical they had for a while. But I mean, seriously, who is the biggest owner of monorails in the world? Disney?
I think Japan, actually.
Is it?
Yeah, well, Japan is the one doing a lot. They're more vocal in their research. I believe they hold the world speed record with monorail.
So, good news for the people down in Montgomery, Illinois. United Sugar is going to be built in a huge complex down there to store sugar crystals, and they'll have their own little industrial railroad to serve it. They start construction. They should be up and running next year. NICT, Northern Indiana Commuter Transit District, finally got some federal money to go ahead and start laying out plans to go towards Dwyer. Built their branch line on the old Monon line down to Munster and Dwyer. So it's worth $563 million if they ever built the line. So they got the money now to do the engineering.
Well, that's good.
Yep, that's good for them.
Yeah. Isn't that part of the extension that's going to go to Valparaiso?
Someday. That's part of the plan. They said that they'll do the same thing they're doing now, is the South Shore Freight will then have freight rights on it. Even though there's probably no customers down there, they'll probably have freight rights for. They like that arrangement.
If you build the tracks, they will come.
Oh yeah.
A lot of transloading.
Omnitrack, which owns Chicago Rail Link, that operates on the old Rock Island line, is putting some new with grade crossing technology. Now, trying to find out exactly where this was going. Couldn't find what crossing they're putting it on, but they're not going to have, when you guys trip the switch and the signal goes through the rails to trip the thing, it's going to be tripped differently now. They're not going to rely on sending the signal through the rail any longer. It's probably a radio link of some sort. So they're going to trip the crossing gates by some kind of radio link, and they're the first ones to test this new technology out. But couldn't find out where they're going to put it up.
I've heard a little bit about it, but I can't find any information on it.
So that's the story there on that guy. And then we got some down news about railroads. The Chicago terminal, the Goose Island operation, for all practical purposes, is dead. I was down there last week. The rails are rusted over, weeds overgrown. People have put up fences now across the track in certain places. The bridge is out because somebody stole the wiring off the bridge, so the bridge across the river is no longer serviceable. There's only one customer left, and that was General Iron, and there's no point in fixing the bridge just for 5 gondolas a week, which is what they need. So that operation's probably going to be gone. The diesel's been moved around in the North Avenue yard. It's off in the corner now, not next to the house there. The other one is manufacturer's Junction. That's going to be gone. They're just waiting for the papers to be filed. There's been no movement. The copper company's gone. The warehouse is gone. They're not allowed. Cicero decided to clamp down. They're no longer allowed to store freight cars on their track. The roundhouse has been torn down. Their engine house has been torn down. Everything's been cleaned off the property. The tracks are still there, but there's been no deliveries or anything. I checked with a buddy who switches down there, and he says they've not received anything now in 2 years. So it's just a matter of time before we see the manufacturer's Junction file for abandonment or something.
The manufacturer Junction, back in the 90s, they painted their switch engine into Rock Island Rocket paint scheme and put number 23 on it.
Yeah, Michael Jordan's number.
Yeah. You know, their regular color scheme was insignia blue and insignia yellow, because I used to paint HO scale engines for Omni track. Or, well, it was Rail Link then. You know, so yeah, but I drove. You drive by and you look to where the roundhouse should be, and there's nothing. Nothing at all.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. In the world of model railroading, 'tis the season so far. The Chicago Botanic Gardens, the last weekend of October will be when the railroad will shut down. But in the weekends leading to it, they have the 1,000 lights of Halloween, and they got like little jack-o'-lanterns and everything around, and they run ghost trains, and they run until 7:30. So you can see the trains running at night. They got spooky dogs and on weekends, and it's actually quite nice to see. People should go out and see it. The trains are all with Halloween cars on them. Got a friend of, they built a Halloween train using double-headed Jeep 40s painted for Illinois Central. And they got cars all set up with lights on it and Witch's Brew and everything.
They went to White Castle for coffee and just poured it in the Witch's Brew tanks?
That's it. And then, so they'll be running the rest of the month. Now, the next 2 weekends, the Heston Steam Museum runs their Erie Express, and Fox River Trolley Museum out in South Elgin, they're running on Saturdays, and they're having Scary Story Train, and they run for about an hour and a half. While they're reading ghost stories. They do about 5 runs Saturday. You know, if we were next week, if we did it last week, we'd probably get more people out there.
Well, maybe they'll still may hear this by that, the right time.
I hope they do.
Yeah.
Outside of the city in, I'm trying to think, the name begins with W. Waterman. They've got a 15-inch gauge train that they run during the holiday season, and they got their Pumplin Express. It's about an hour and a half ride outside of town, where Route 23 and Route 30 meet. And they got a place there that serves good apple cider, fresh made on the property, and fudge. Oh, they got great fudge.
Not hard cider.
Might be.
Hotel.
And and they also run a holiday train. We'll talk about that next month. And also, there's another one, the Silverton. It's up near Rockford. They have steam thrashing and such, and they have a terror train that they run and into the night, and on Saturdays, and it's a lot of fun. Plus, you can buy brats and just have a regular picnic out there.
Well, now that you mentioned, I want to interject something, a question. Does anyone remember when you could take the train from whatever this train was, from say Chicago to Milwaukee, and you saw murder on the train? It was a play actually being acted out, or
Amtrak does it on some of their Hiawatha's.
do they?
Yes.
Still?
Yeah, the
Murder train.
Is that what?
yeah murder train. They used to run ads for it in the Reader of all places.
Yeah, and they do it about once a quarter.
They also do. I think it's the same group does Murder in the Mansion, and they use the. There's a mansion out near Joliet that used to belong to a rail baron, and they use it for banquets and stuff. But this group also goes in there and stages murder mysteries.
Yeah. Basically, their version of Clue.
I remember that.
You brought up Christmas and
Christmas. I figured next month in November we can talk about Christmas.
well, I want to throw a couple of dates out for planning because I know parents got a plan. The Chicagoland Lionel Railroad Club on the 3rd and 10th of December, in addition to being open for their regular open house, the chief engineer of the North Pole and Snowflake will be at the club in the prescribed seasonal uniform from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. and just bring your own camera. There's no additional charge. So on top of getting to look at all the trains, you can have your children's picture taken with Santa.
And we'll remember to talk about that next month.
Yes, we will.
And it was interesting. I was stopped for a passenger train down in Skokie, and it was a Hiawatha coming into town. And first time I've seen it, the cabbage cars that they put on it now, the retired F-40s that they made baggage cars out of. I saw one painted for the American veteran. The veterans paint scheme that they got on their P-42s and the electric, they now have a cabbage car with that paint scheme on it.
I haven't actually seen the repaint on the F-40PH that came out of rebuild, but I have seen a color photo of the Metra F-40.
Oh, well, this is Amtrak I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking Amtrak. They
Okay.
got the special veterans paint scheme on them, on the cabbage car.
I'll have to watch for that because
I just saw it today. I'm
Okay.
going, okay. I haven't heard anything about it or anything. Something like that would have been in the new fan.
Well, the only thing I spotted on the Hiawatha was they had a Northern Pacific Dome car in one of their runs when it went flying by.
Yeah.
Is that the new service they have where you pay extra and ride that, or?
It might be, but I know there was a group that has that car, and that was in fact that's the dome that was on the 765 trip. One of the 3 domes on there.
So what's going on in Steam?
Nothing much. We talked about the big thing in Fort Wayne, but I found out something new. There was an article that came out in the New Trains magazine. That wonderful locomotive that was on display in the Science and Industry Museum that got auctioned off was sold to a gentleman down in Memphis. And he decided he was going to try and restore it for operation. Now, it's always been under the nomer that it was a British locomotive. It turned out and did something, and it was an American-built locomotive. And it is figured out to be the oldest horizontal boilered American locomotive in existence. Because the oldest locomotive they got it has a vertical boiler is a B&O engine, and it's on display in Dayton, Ohio. It was made like in 1835, and this engine was made in 1836.
Can it be redone for service or no?
Well, they're not going. He's not going to do it. If they do it, they'd have to put a whole new boiler on it. But he says, "No, I'm not going to do that and ruin it." And so they're going to be. It's going to be completely redone, but it will be display only, not operational.
No, horizontal, vertical. Vertical means up high or straight. Or
Vertical is
Up and down.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
and then the horizontal
yeah.
is what
Like the horizon.
The base, yeah, the horizon.
Thinking that way.
And it's the basic design that was actually introduced with the rocket. Actually, the original Catch Me If You Can, Richard Trevithick's locomotive.
And wasn't the Tom Thumb the one South Carolina Railroad was vertical?
Tom Thumb, no, that's not South Carolina.
Oh, that was the one in New Jersey.
That was, no,
I'll get one of these states.
B&O. Tom Thumb raced the horse,
Right,
Elcott City.
but that was a vertical. That was
Yeah,
a vertical boiler.
that was a vertical boiler. The Stevens locomotive in Hoboken was vertical, and same with the Southern locomotive.
What about the John Bull now? Where's that?
Best
all fit
friend
in
of
this?
Charleston.
Okay, and where does the John Bull locomotive fit in all this?
Okay, John Bull is vertical boiler, but English built.
Okay.
It was built by Robert Stevens. And for the Camden and Amboy Railroad, which is part of the Pennsylvania. And that locomotive with its original boiler sitting in the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C. And it is listed as the oldest operating steam locomotive in the world. John White was the curator of the Smithsonian, and they decided for its 200th birthday or 100th birthday, let's see if we can light it off. So for its 150th birthday in 1981, they tested it on the Southern Railway branch and then ran it on a branch line on the B&O. And had it going back and forth. And they had one of the Camden and Amboy coaches behind it. It was the oldest coach with 8 wheels underneath it. But they used the original boiler. And when I asked Mr. White about it, he said it was the biggest pain in the ass he ever went through. And he says, I'm not going to do it again. Before he retired.
Well, none of this stuff is easy.
Nope.
No, we found that out like with when you were talking about the Lincoln train, funeral train, and you know. Anyway.
Well, I believe it's ready to do station break.
It is.
Yep.
Already?
Already.
Okay. It's okay with me. Should we take a vote on this or what?
Not.
By acclamation.
And you are listening to Chicago Junction on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Thursday, October the 20th, the year 2016. And this is Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich, Illinois. And now, back to Chicago Junction and our panel.
right, back to part two. No, down in Nashville, the Yellow Jacket. It's on display. The city council took a vote and says yes, they can pull it out and try to rebuild it and get it operational. And that's good news.
Yeah, the hope is to get it operational, and then it will be in service along the tracks along the river and the baseball stadium, and it may be pie in the sky, but they're talking about the possibility of doing dinner trains on it. Unfortunately, my daughter got a job that took her to St. Louis, so I don't think I'll be back to see the Yellow Jacket. But when we were down there a little over a week ago, we did get a chance to go to the Transportation Museum, which was delightful. They've got the Burlington 9908, which is a sister engine to the one that is at the Museum of Science and Industry. They've got a Union Pacific Challenger, and they've got a Panama Canal rail tug on display. And we were there for about 3 hours, and my granddaughter and my wife were completely burnt out at that point, so we called it a day. But before we left, my granddaughter and I got on the trolley, and if you remember the trolleys here in Chicago, it's identical, except this one happened to be part of the Philadelphia Transit Authority or Transit Commission. I think it was PTC. And they said, we have one just like this from the CTA, but it's down for maintenance. So they back it up about 100 yards, which is the extent of their overhead power lines, and then they pull back. They pull forward back to where they pick you up.
Now, how old is this streetcar trolley? Right? Didn't you say?
It has steel wheels, so it's not a trolley bus.
Yeah. No, I didn't mean that. I remember them. Yeah.
To my way of thinking, they look the same, except for what comes in contact, with the roadway, because they were both run on electricity. But I know Brian's going to take me out behind the garden and beat me up.
No, they look more like they had the Green Hornets.
Now these were, the roof was like a pea green, and then from the roof line down to about a foot below the windows is a cream color, and then it's the green again.
Yeah,
but this one had it looked like a globe, with like the wing of Mercury coming back from it, and the letters PTC.
Yeah, this sounds like what we had called the Green Hornets here. The Green Hornet. The older ones were called Red Rockets. You could have like front and back entrances.
This one had a double door entrance in the front with the little token box, and then at the back it had the double door to get off. So you got on in the front, and you got off in the back, and it had that monster wraparound back seat that 5 normal people or 8 high school kids, could sit in.
So boring being normal.
And they said they've got 4 of them in total.
Yeah.
The only 2 they mentioned by name were the one that was in operation in the CTA.
Yeah.
And then they had a milk car there. They actually had an old Army flat car. And it was painted green, but you could see where it had been masked out, that it was black, and it had the car serial number and then USA stenciled underneath it. They had a gas turbine U.S. Army Transportation Corps switcher. They had about 5 or 6 little switchers. It was a well-spent 3 hours. And the highlight for the kids is there is a 1/3 scale CP Huntington. And the guy that operates it, it should be a steam engine. This one happens to be diesel because it's built downscaled. And the first thing he tells you is this is a 1/3 scale copy of the CP Huntington, which is in Sacramento, California. So and it's a nice little train that goes around the lower level of the museum, and you go across a bridge that was actually the turntable bridge, and they tell you Thomas calls this a roundabout, and it's a wonderful place. I'm looking forward to going back, hopefully in December, because they have a small train display that's there all year round. That's probably 10 foot by 8 foot. But they moved the bookmobile and the Adolf, which is a 1928 touring bus that was bought by the Coors Company for their baseball team. They moved those out of the building, and they bring in a huge train set for Christmas. So I'm looking forward to going back.
This is Nashville?
No, this is in St. Louis.
Oh, it's St. Louis. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it's St. Louis.
Yeah. So, actually, my wife is actually looking forward to going back to seeing it too. So, it's going to be a time well spent with our grandkids.
Yeah, believe it or not, there is that replica CP Huntington actually running here in on the north side. They run it on the track around Lamb's Farm.
Oh, cool.
So you can take it there. You can't make it to St. Louis.
The reason I was expressing such interest in your descriptions, I remember very well, I was right in Chicago. I'm older than you guys, and I remember we still had in the 50s streetcars. We had the different ones. The Red Rocket one I'm talking about was on Ashland Avenue, and it looked more like the one it was probably from the 1920s. It probably dated anyway. You know, it had that look like you see in a Charlie Chaplin movie or whatever, or Harold Lloyd or someone. And with the Green Hornet, I believe, came along right around World War II or shortly thereafter.
Yeah, the PCC.
Yeah, they're very streamlined, very, looking
almost bus-like.
Yeah, very much, and there was a smaller one, somewhat, called the Blue Goose. It was somewhat similar, but it was a smaller, maybe 2/3 the size of the other.
I grew up in a part of the city that was called Mount Greenwood. It was far southwest side. If you wanted to go downtown, you took the 52A CTA bus, gasoline or diesel, probably gasoline back when I was a kid.
Might have been propane.
No, not back then. To 63rd Place in Kedzie, to the turnaround. And you got off there, and then you got on the electric-powered trolley bus with tires. And you took that to Archer Avenue. And then when you got to Archer Avenue, then you got on the bus, and depending on how things went, it either had tires or steel wheels. I think most of them were I think most of the steel wheels were gone by the time I was 8 or 9. But I mean, I can remember downtown with the overhead wires, and I think I was 13 or 14. Some kid went to get on the bus at 63rd Place in Kedzie, and he'd been in a big snowball fight with his buddies, so he was soaking wet.
Uh-oh.
He couldn't step up onto the bus without doing the St. Vitus dance. He grounded himself out. And here's Grandma. Grandma grabs him by the back of the collar and pulls him off the bus.
Save him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to tangle with that kind of electricity.
What I remember about the trolley bus was it was maneuverable and it accelerated very, very quickly. It was, I don't know, it was on a
Didn't slow down real fast, though.
No, you're right. But I'm saying it could accelerate very, very quickly. They were still around the middle 70s. Kedzie, Grand Avenue had them. 47th Street, I know.
I know
Wentworth.
63rd Place in Kedzie was the divider line between the electric service and the gasoline service.
Mm-hmm.
And that was back when the buses were white on the top to about 6 inches below the window, and then they were a dark green. You know, the same paint job that they carried all through the time I was in college, and they were fondly referred. The L cars were finally referred to as the rancid Trappet.
We in Chicago, you had the CTA came in around 47 as the authority, but prior to that you had Chicago Surface Lines.
Yes.
And then you had the Chicago Motor Coach Company. You had those double deckers on the boulevards.
Used to go down Addison Street,
Yeah.
all the way to Wrigley Field.
On a double decker.
That's right.
Matter of fact, they demolished the Chicago Surface Lines barn at
Archer,
and
Pershing, Archer, Pershing, Rockwell.
Rockwell.
Just recently,
2
last
years
couple
ago.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
You know,
it was a shame to see that get knocked down.
You're talking about the trolley buses. I remember when the trolley buses would go down North Avenue, because my Uncle Joe used to drive one of them, and he'd come to an intersection and cross over, and then the trolley would jump off the wire. He's stranded out in the middle of the intersection. He had to run out, pull down on the rope, and set the shoe back up on the wires again. And the Green Hornet used to go up and down Western Avenue.
Right.
Many times I got on the bus, both the Green Hornet and the red one. What did you call the red one, Jack?
Red Rocket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From Addison and Western by Lane Tech High School all the way down to 95th and Western Avenue to Evergreen Park shopping mall down, because there used to be WDHF used to be there, the Von Hi-Fi, and I used to buy all those records that are sitting on that shelf there came from over there.
Now on Western, I believe, like 78th Street was the terminal there, where that was where the
Yes, it's still the terminal is still there.
But I mean, that's where
next to Miss Muffet.
That's where the electric ended, and you had to take a bus from there.
And there was one on, like, just south of 79th Street on Halsted, and the Capitol Theater was right there.
Yeah. Yes.
Wherever it seemed that wherever there was a terminal for the buses, within a block of it was a movie theater, because 63rd Place in Kedzie was the terminal.
Highway.
No,
so the Marquette.
the Marquette.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing is where the streetcars ended, you had these little picnic groves too. You had a lot of things. There was the Brown Derby was out south. It was Polonia Grove, and it's not Polonia Banquets on Archer, but that was like the end of the line for the streetcars at one time. So people would hop on. That's it. You can.
If you
it's
want
the
to
truth.
if you want to ride a PCC, go up to Kenosha.
Yeah.
They have a small little streetcar line that runs from the metro station to the lakefront and back. It's on a loop,
Yeah.
and it's only 25 cents to ride.
I would.
Yeah, it's taking it to the redevelopment place.
Yeah. Is it kind of ornamental, or is that what the idea is, or kind of, unique? Is that it, or?
Yeah.
We're talking about streetcars and buses. I was sitting in the kitchen having a cup of coffee this morning. I look up on the refrigerator, and here's a flip, the clear plastic coin holder. And I had talked about streetcar tokens and bus tokens with my daughter's boyfriend, and he had brought one of these flips over with a little white card in it, and it said Honolulu 1924, and it's got the bus token in it. Now I've got a CTA token. With that, I think I've got 3 or 4 tokens in total. If you could find a CTA token today, the last one I saw at a coin show, they wanted $10 for a CTA token.
I got a whole roll of them.
The metal ones, not the brass ones.
I got the silver ones.
You know.
Remember they were using them, 25, 30 years ago. They
were
found a whole bunch.
using them
Yeah.
as late as 10 years ago.
Was
still.
it? Yeah, still around?
You could get them at Jewel.
Okay.
You're not doubting us?
Remember, I'm an East Coaster.
Yeah. Well, let's hear about...
I'm sure they had tokens for the streetcars and buses on the East Coast.
Oh, in Philly, yeah. Yeah, the Norristown High-Speed line.
Oh,
Yeah, the Red Arrow line went up to Upper Darby there, 69th Street. That's where I actually saw the trains that you guys call electro liners.
The Liberty Liners.
Liberty liners.
Now, does it seem... Is it just, nostalgic, or more... Do you think the streetcars were very dependable and, weather, all weather?
They were dependable. You very rarely saw one broken down. And it was a different time. Until 1970, when I started my third year of college, there was only one car in our house. And I thank my father for his wisdom. When I went off to college, I wanted a car, and he says, no car till you're in your third year. And it's probably he probably saved my life, because I was not a good college student. I would have lost my student deferment. I would have spent my second semester probably at Fort Leonard Wood, and my third semester would have been on the wrong side of the world learning another language.
Don't have to go that far anymore.
Yeah, I was going to say people would have been shooting at me, but that's an everyday occurrence in Chicago.
The reason I asked, though, is something like, I heard the stat, maybe more, maybe less now, something like 27 cities in North America still have rapid transit lines like that. Not rapid transit, the actual trolley bus on the surface of the street.
Well, yeah. So, some still have them. Dayton still has the trolley buses. Toronto, San Francisco.
Not the buses now. I'm talking about this.
Yeah, just the trolley buses.
No, I'm not talking about buses. I'm talking about the...
Yeah, well, streetcars, too.
Streetcar, yeah.
Yeah, like I said, though, Dayton doesn't have streetcars, but it's got its trolley bus.
Yeah. I know the last streetcar line to go out in Chicago was Wentworth. That was in 1962 or something like that. I saw that fact somewhere.
But, yeah, Cincinnati just opened a streetcar line.
Yeah.
And trust me, they're using it. People are using it, and the city just doesn't know how to run it. No, seriously, they were having certain events, and instead of putting more streetcars on, they were going to just one run and run normal Sunday service.
Oh yeah, no.
That's
and their trains are packed.
That sounds like the Maroons in Washington, D.C. They had the big baseball game over the weekend, and they had the Metro scheduled for a midnight shutdown for maintenance. And I said, we don't care that there's a baseball game going. We're shutting the trains down at midnight. Now, the Metro in Washington, D.C., I've ridden it. I like it.
It's the subway, right?
It's the subway.
Yeah, I've been there, yeah.
But their cars, even though they have electric power, have pneumatic tires. So they have regular rubber tires with air in them. It's a very, very smooth ride.
So quiet too.
It's a lot of it's underground, and where it comes up, it's you can be right next to it. It'll go by you. You'll hardly hear it.
Yeah, I did notice that one.
It's almost like a centipede arrangement with the number of tires they have under the cars.
Now it goes in D.C. It also goes into Virginia and Maryland too, doesn't it?
Yep.
The Metro.
You can get on. You can get the Metro at Catholic University of America, where my son went to college. Go down to Union Station. Switch there. And then you can get on the Virginia Rail Express. You can catch Amtrak. I think was it Brian 3 or 4 rail lines going to Union Station in D.C.
Yeah.
And then when you get into the heart of the city, I mean, the metro stations are cavernous. They got lines crossing over each other at 90 degrees. And, you know, I think they've got 7 or 8 different routes that are color coded. You can go to Fashion City coming into DC. Your next stop is going to be the Pentagon, and then you go right into DC.
I remember it would seem like they were very deep, and it was cool, and it was very clean, very, very clean, like magnificently, you know. None of this. You think of like this grid or whatever that develops in our sort of subway tunnels.
I saw one of their transit officers tell a kid that if he unwrapped, the kid took a candy bar out of his shirt pocket.
Yeah.
And the transit officer told him, if you unwrap that candy bar, I will physically arrest you. They do not allow any eating or drinking on their trains.
That might explain part of it.
Any event, what's the stuff you got here?
Oh,
Yeah. Oh,
I
yes.
had mentioned these before. My aunt worked for her entire career for the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, and you know she had asked a friend who acquired a complete set of the diner car menus from the Eisenhower funeral train returning from Abilene, Kansas to Washington, D.C. And there's a note taped to the back that says, Kevin, as I promised, these are the menus from the Eisenhower funeral train, which are now very rare and someday may be a collector's item. Well, my aunt's words were never truer. The inside of the first cover reads, Dwight D. Eisenhower, 34th President of the United States. And they're a gloss bit black, and in gold embossed printing at the bottom it says diner car menu, and there is the Chessie kitten sleeping. And you know, I keep these hidden away in a steel box with the commemorative book about the Greenbrier Hotel, which was owned by the CNO and then went to Chessie and then eventually CSX.
And they sold it.
Yeah, I think it went to Burlington, got it. But, you know, besides being a very famous hotel and a place where the U.S. government put a lot of famous visitors, including Queen Elizabeth II, there are massive tunnels and spaces underneath it. It was one of the alternate sites in case Washington, D.C. ever became a nuclear parking lot. There were facilities there for a lot of government people, just like Fort A.P. Hill, just outside of Richmond, is an evacuation station. But, you know, they're just a collector's piece, but it's really neat.
Well, it is. It's history.
You know, it's from
It's some artwork.
April of 1969, and it has caused me to launch off on a couple of computer searches to see which engines and which cars were involved in the Eisenhower funeral train.
And if you go to the B&O Museum, you will see the baggage car that carried the body.
What's that?
The one menu for dinner, and at the bottom of the page says B&O C&O Passenger Food Service, initial K, initial S, Cox, Superintendent, and the dinner was vegetable soup with saltines, a choice of breast of chicken country style, or baked ham with raisin sauce, whipped potatoes, green beans, dinner rolls, ice cream with wafers, coffee, tea, milk, or Sanka. So even back in 1969, you could get decaffeinated coffee. And that was dinner. And then a different day, dinner was fresh fruit cocktail or cream of tomatoes soup with saltines, a Chessie sirloin steak, roast Long Island duckling with dressing, baked potato with sour cream, dinner rolls,
Beats White Castle.
tossed garden salad, choice of dressing. This will warm the cockles of your heart. Blueberry pie a la mode, or individual blue cheese with saltines, and again, coffee, tea, milk, or Sanka.
What all the above?
I'm sure you would have found some way to weasel it out of the poor.
The last time I heard lists like that, I was in the hospital. But you were circle this one.
I
I'm sure
would
it was much better.
I would like to see the hospital
no, I'm just
serve
saying.
food
no,
like
no,
that.
not. I mean, comparable. Circle this one or circle.
Yeah, well, I don't think the people that worked the dining cars were always in impeccably pressed black slacks, white shirt, black bow tie, and that starched white jacket. And it was almost a privilege to have dinner on the train. Again, something that has been lost over the years.
Is it kind of recreated in North by Northwest? Is that pretty accurate? Do you think it would look like a?
Yeah,
And to me, that's not that long. It was at 59, right?
that
It
is correct.
but I mean, it's not.
Well, you were on the 20th Century Limited.
Yeah.
That was the hotel on wheels.
Was it real?
They were, between them, the Broadway Limited, they were both Pullman throughout. And then you had the Super Chief in the West.
Super
And
Chief and what else was El Capitan?
yeah, well,
The Zephyr.
Capitan had coaches, but Super Chief was all Pullman.
Oh, all sleeper. Oh, okay.
I would imagine.
Even their coach seats were Pullman.
Yeah.
I would imagine this dinner menu would be very similar to what you would have found on the Capital Limited.
Or the National.
Yes. I met a gentleman Saturday that worked for the BNOCT, the Baltimore and Ohio Chicago Terminal, and he said they got permission and reactivated a caboose, and it's painted B&O Enchantment Blue with a white herald on the side. The herald was all hand painted, but he told me that my treasured Demitas cup that I thought was from the Capital Limited is actually the centenary pattern, and that the Capital Limited was gloss white with gold lettering and trim, and the plate would actually read Capital Limited. He said, but by the 60s, everything was pretty much in use.
So you mean individual train had their individual styles and
certain trains had certain place settings and flatware that were signature to that train.
Mm-hmm.
Each railroad had certain trains that were signature, and some of them were their premier trains, and the premier trains were to rail what the pride of the line, similar to what the Lusitania was to the White Star Line, except the trains didn't usually sink.
Well, a good plate display in silverware is at the New York Central Museum in Elkhart. They have a nice display of the plates, dinnerware, the coffee cups, the coffee pots, the stuff that the cream came in and everything, all labeled to what train it was on and everything.
Another good display is also the Monon Connection down in Monon.
I didn't go inside, but I was there.
Yeah, you could see the trains outside, but if you went inside, a wonderful collection, not just of the china, which was phenomenal, but of lanterns and even watches of what they have on display. Truly fascinating, and the food's good too.
When the Norfolk and Western took over the old nickel plate diamond yard at 103rd and Stony Island and decided to knock buildings down,
1964.
I didn't see it because I would have cried, but I was told they were taking 40-foot semi-loads of playing cards and matchbooks, just loading them up
And then
with a front end loader and dumping them into the truck and hauling them off as garbage.
I believe it.
Yeah. My aunt was able to, over her years of service, get us decks of playing cards. I have several decks, double decks, in the plastic tray, still sealed in the cellophane in my desk drawer. And we had decks that we just played to death. We played with them until all the printing had come off of them. But I've got a few decks that were never opened.
Now, would the decks also have specific markings of the train, or
No, one had Chessie on it and one had Peak on it, and they were, one deck was gold trim, powder blue backing, and then the cat, and the other was like a light yellow or a light tan with the gold trim, and the other cat, because Chessie and Peak, you know,
yeah, was that
Peak was the male, I think.
Yes.
Peak,
He went to war.
Peak went to war. Peak was the male, Chessie was the mom, and the Chessie kitten was the result.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. Were these the cards that Doyle Lonergan used on the coming in and the?
Probably not.
No.
They were probably a different pattern. These would have been from the 60s.
Well,
We're getting down there. We have a couple shows that people might want to go to.
Let's hear it.
One would be a hobby show on the second weekend of November at the Milwaukee Fairgrounds. Train Fest.
Excellent show.
It's one of the largest train shows in the United States.
Model trains.
Model trains, all the way up to live steam. They got in fact, they bring in a locomotive from the Whiskey River Railroad, which is a 15-inch gauge line up in the Wisconsin Dells. But they also have inch-and-a-half scale set up there with battery-powered locomotives to give kids a ride around. They have vendors there, and they have a multitude of clubs up there setting up trains in all scales. And in fact, it's gotten so big, they actually put some of the people with big layouts in a second building.
They also have a lot of people up there that deal in railroadiana. So I mean, if you're looking to pick up a lock or buttons or
Yes, they're one of the vendors too. But they also have manufacturers there. So this way you can see what's coming.
Okay.
And
if you happen to have a G gauge layout and you're looking for go-go girls, there was I made it 2 years ago. There was a guy that had G scale go-go girls. They had the whole crew for the car show and then the mechanic shop and everything else. If it's train or train related, you'll find it up there.
that is true.
Other shows or?
Yeah, there's another one at Hawthorne Nursery. The Midwest Rails is going to set up a holiday display towards the end around Thanksgiving. It'll be there for 2 weeks.
And where's Hawthorne Nursery?
Hawthorne.
Hawthorne, Illinois? Okay.
Yep.
Well,
Just up the road.
no, because, I mean, Hawthorne is also, it's like a township or something out around Cicero there, too. So.
That's the township where the Hawthorne Nursery is.
Oh, well.
Third Saturday
How about
of
that?
November, the Chicagoland Lionel Railroad Club will have an open house, and you can Google the Chicagoland Lionel Railroad Club, and it'll take you right to our website, and there's a directions app, so you can get directions from anywhere.
To anywhere, too?
Pardon?
To anywhere also. From to.
Both.
Anything else?
Every which way but loose.
Anything else?
That's it.
Nope.
That's it.
Well,
Turned out to be a pretty good show, gang. And I want to thank everybody for the input. And as usual, it's always a great learning experience for me, and I'm sure it is for our listeners. So until next time, this is Jack Ryan on behalf of Kevin Barry, Rich, Brian Valou, Doug Kanyuk,
yes.
and our absent members, Ron Smolin and Dave Darushka, and who's the new man? I can't forget his name. Okay, yeah. Wishing you all, remember, happy rails to you.
Oh, as the train pulls into the station, the Chicago Junction comes to an end. Remember, all the everything that you hear is not the responsibility of the station. Thank you for listening to our wonderful World of Trains, and please join us next month. This is your announcer saying good night.
You have been listening to Chicago Junction on Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Thursday, October the 20th, the year 2016. Chicago Junction is produced by Jack Ryan, directed by John DeVita, and our special thanks to radio station manager Kevin Zeflik of WRHS FM Norwich, and of course the executive producer of the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Chikanda. Today's broadcast was pre-recorded on Wednesday, October the 18th, the year 2016. Until next time, please be safe and thanks for listening. And this is Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM, Norwich, Illinois, a Ridgewood Community High School radio station. Thanks for listening. Have a good day.